All right, it's time. I'm tweeting about it. I'm waiting for Twitch and YouTube to start. And it looks like Twitch is good. Still waiting for YouTube. And there's YouTube. Hello. Good afternoon, everybody. I'm just gonna mute that so I don't have to listen to myself. And I forgot yet again to move my mic. I'm sorry about that. Move the mic. Clunka-chunka-runka-munka. Hello, welcome to the live stream today. I am sleepy, so I'm gonna try and keep it on task and not get distracted and get some good work done, because this is for something that I'm doing relatively soon and does need to be done. Sometimes on my live streaming I do, fun projects, and sometimes I do work that I didn't get done during the rest of the week. So we're going to be looking at what makes a data set successful. And I'm a little bit worried about the fact that it says dataset no longer available, because I wrote this on Kaggle, which should still be available. Yeah, okay, there's Kaggle. Updated 12 hours ago. Does my kernel show up in the list of kernels? Yes. Oh, okay. Praxitelis says, "Hello, Rachel. I'm looking forward to your data science food for thought." Oh, thank you. Well, I hope it is good food for thought and not sort of snacks for naps, which is about what my what I'm feeling. So that looks like a bug, probably. Interesting. So I had been working on this week, and I'd done a little bit of work already. So doing a little bit of data cleaning, doing a little bit of joining. If you've worked with Kaggle before, it's a bunch of different tables, each of which have different information about something on the Kaggle platform. And it is updated, I believe, daily, so it is sort of current data about what's on the platform, minus things that we've removed for, GDPR compliance, stuff like that. But it is, information about the platform. Anybody can use it. It's public data that we share. And I've done a little bit of work on licenses, because I'm really interested in data licenses and what data licenses are associated with the most use of the data set. I guess I should give you a little bit of background. So this particular analysis that I'm doing here is for the AAAI, so the American Academy of Artificial Intelligence, I think. Let's see. AAI. Association for the Advancement of Artificial Intelligence. Wow, I was really super duper wrong about that. And every spring they have a set of symposia, so sort of like narrow topic workshops on different things, and I'm going to be presenting some of what I find here at the Open Science workshop about, so you've got a scientific data set, you want to share it, how can you make it so that people will use it and find it useful. The Answer to Life says, such a perfect time for a stream, just having a cheeky Nando's. Yeah, it's sort of like the last slice of the workday in the US, so a nice evening stream for the UK, super early for Japan. Yeah, it's hard to find a time that works for everybody. So I looked at licenses and sort of the effect of different licenses on downloading, and basically if you have a permissive open source license, you're going to get more downloads. And this is log, because it's obviously extremely skewed. If the data files are copyright the original authors, you're really limited in what you can do with them, so people are less likely to download them. If there's no license, which means that data files are copyright the original authors, basically, again, much less likely to be downloaded. The open database license and CC BY NCSA, so with attribution, non-commercial, share alike, and CC0, which is public domain, tend to have higher attribution, and then people specify, a range of licenses, like the MIT license. Anyway, so looking at those effects, and also looking at, oh wow, this is really narrow, so the line mapping is weird, but a number of other sort of factors that might play in, so whether or not it has a subtitle or a description, whether or not it's been versioned, so it's been updated over time, the size of the data set, again, whether it has an open license, as defined by not CC, as defined by not no license or copyright original authors. And then I did a bunch of clustering, and there's been a pretty nasty bug that is resolved now, hopefully, where some folks who are using kernels next, which is the new editor that you might have gotten, were losing work. And I did lose some work, but the upshot is that I had a really nice example to share with the engineers, and we could spend some time digging down into it, and I think we got the bug, hopefully. So that's been a big part of my week as well, has been debugging. Ryan says, I don't necessarily download or not download based on whether they have a license or not, but having the license means someone put actual thought into the data, so it's probably more worth a look. Yeah, definitely. And and if you are working in a business application and you need to know whether or not you can train a model based on that data, or like you're even allowed to have the data on your servers, that's an important consideration. Fingerdraw said, I'm trying to add a data set to Kaggle from Google Drive through a shareable link. It is 12 gigs, but only showing HTML. Question mark. For the URL upload to work, it has to point to an endpoint that has specific methods that we want to interact with. Like, I think it has to have the head method specifically. Yeah. If you continue to have problems, I'd post about it on the product feedback form. So, first of all, so the GG radar is a way of plotting. We saw it during the code review that we did a couple weeks ago. Nathan's code, I think. He used it for clustering NBA statistics. But because all of my clustering work is gone, I think we're just going to take it from the top, and I don't need that information. So we're reading in the data, and I did a little bit of cleaning. So we have two tables here that I'm using. We've got the datasets versions and the datasets table, and if you look into them, although dataset no longer available, but if I open it in a new window, it doesn't point to that, but MetaKaggle's definitely still available. So there may be some sort of bug here, or it may be because I wrote the kernel in the new editor and then I shared it to my non-admin account that doesn't have new editor access yet, so do not entirely know what's up with that. But the datasets table, and y'all have no idea how lucky you are that we went through and said what all the columns were. Not something I had access to when I first started interacting with our database, and it was rough. So this is a much nicer way to interact with our database than just sort of like, here's the data tables and here are the column names, and that's all the information you have. So the data sets, we have information on the creator, the owner, so this is like an organization, the current data set version, the data source, so the data bundles are sort of the structure that we store the actual data files in, whether or not it's BigQuery, creation date, review date, so this will be NA for data sets that haven't been reviewed, and reviewing is something that we do by hand. We just sort of like look at data sets and like, that one's good. That one we're gonna wait on until maybe it gets a little bit better in the future. And then featuring is the data sets that are featured are the ones that show up here. I thought they had a tag called featured. Maybe we're not featuring data sets anymore. Maybe. Anyway, so if a data set has been featured, we're like, this is a really good data set and we think people would be interested in it. And that sort of like rotates through different data sets. And this is sort of like updating things like that. So there was a lot of activity between January and March 2018. Turns out, views, downloads, votes, and kernels. And the thing that I'm looking at for this particular project is downloads, because I think that that's what's most relevant for scientists who are sharing their data, because they don't, I mean, it's nice if people look at it, but they want folks to use it, right? And sort of dig down into it. And they may choose not to do that in kernels. They may not be comfortable working with R or Python. You may be collaborating with a lab that only uses Excel for everything, which exists. So that's why I chose downloads to look at. And also, it's a little bit less skewed. So you can see that these are all pretty skewed distributions. Downloads is sort of the thing that happens most rarely, more or less. So I thought there'd be more signal there than there would be in views. But this does not have other information like, does this have a description? Does it have a subtitle? So those sort of metadata things I was interested in. So that information is in the data set version. There you go. That information's in the dataset versions, and every time you create a new version of the dataset, that information is stored here. So there's a lot of duplication if a dataset has a lot of versions, so I needed to go through and make sure that we only had one version for each. And then we have the information on things like the license, the creation date. You can tell sort of like when we launched the datasets platform, and then it's gotten, much more popular over time. Version number, you can see a lot of data sets have never been updated, and then over time, some of them have been, and then we have some that have been updated a lot. And some of these ones that are updated a lot are ones that are sort of like automatically updated. So something that I want to do today is remove data sets that are automatically updated, and I'm not 100% sure how we're going to do that. And then title of the data sets. So if a data set has been deleted or removed, it's obviously going to have an uninformative title, just to let you know it's not there anymore. The URL for the data sets, the subtitle. You can tell that about a third of data sets don't have subtitles, about a third of data sets don't have descriptions, about a fifth of data sets don't have any. When you create a new version, you have a space to put in notes, which I know is something people want when they commit a kernel. We know. Believe me, also I would like it, but you can only ask the engineering team to do so much at a time. And then a little bit of information on size. So in order to get both these pieces of information together, I joined those two tables, and I did an I did an inner join on the dataset ID. And if you're not entirely sure what that means, I would check out the SQL course. A lot of the dplyr logic is very much like SQL logic. So inner join, left join, right join, filter, select. It's all, if you worked with SQL, it's all very, very similar. Or if you've worked with dplyr, that means that SQL will feel very comfortable. So once I joined them together, then I looked at the licenses. So here I'm grouping by license name, so all of the different license names, and then I count the number of rows associated with each group. And then I took just the top 6 licenses because there's a bunch of different licenses, and it's a really long tail, and I think that it wasn't that helpful actually. And then this is where we got that plot where we got the log popularity of dataset by license, except library called DDRadar. Let's comment this out super quick. Will you run now? Okay, yeah, so even though it says the dataset's been deleted, it's still pointed at the dataset, like I haven't changed anything. Bug. Yeah, and I'm not entirely sure what would cause that. And I plotted these using a notched box plot. Jeepers. A notched box plot. which has the quality of if the notches are not overlapping, there is a statistically significant difference between these groups. So it is very unlikely that you would draw two groups with the same distribution of observations from a group if the underlying distribution of the group were the same. So you can see by looking at the notches that the sort of unknown license and the copyright original author's licenses are associated with fewer downloads. And then I did a little linear modeling here. So I am modeling the effect of each level of license name on the number of total downloads. And this plot sums function plots the effect of each. Evan says, interesting, beginner to this, don't mind me, I'll exit when my head explodes. Yeah, no worries. We all started somewhere. And Hap says, that's a nice plot. Thank you. ggplot makes plotting really nice. The plotting experience in Python is not as good. IMO. I tend to enjoy R more. So if we look at this, you will notice that CC BY and CSA is not on this list. So the estimate here is the change that you would get by using a license other than that one. So each of these is being compared to that CC BY and CNSA license. So changing from that license to the open database license has the effect, well, it's not changing. We can't say causal modeling, but for data sets that have this license, generally they get 500 fewer downloads. And unknown licenses get more than 1,000 fewer downloads than the CC BY and CSA license. So that this one, CC BY NCSA 4.0, is associated with the highest number of downloads, and these other licenses are all associated with fewer downloads, is the point that I'm trying to make there. And then I did a little bit of extra modeling as well. And if you follow me on Twitter, I was trying to do a mixed effects model here, controlling for whether or not the dataset had ever been reviewed, because that sort of like as a quality signal. So and that's human moderated, and you can't control that. And unfortunately, all of those models had a singularity, and were degenerate, technically degenerate. So I ended up chucking that. Ryan says Python plotting is good. Matplotlib is bad. That's MATLAB's fault, though. That's true. I'm not the biggest fan of Matplotlib. I don't know. Sometimes I think about it like I don't know, like Seaborn is, automatic transmission, and Matplotlib is that you have the engine open in front of you and you're like adjusting things physically to make the car go. So I have created a number of features from the features in the joined table. I have whether or not there's a subtitle, so I just check if it's NA, because it'll be NA if there's no subtitle, and then I check description as well. I have a Boolean field if the license is unknown or data files copyright original authors. I say license is not open. If it's anything else, I say it is. I included this reviewed field, which I ended up not using because, again, I couldn't create a model that converged using it. Presumably because it correlated too highly with these other features, which are sort of measures of quality. So whether or not it's been reviewed, and then I have just sort of like big data, quote unquote. Is it bigger than a gigabyte? Because one thing that I think I hear from a lot of scientists who are like, oh, I don't want to share my research data. It's too small. People won't be interested. And like a gigabyte data set is not that big in the grand scheme of things, but I don't think I've ever produced, at least in my work, like a tabular data set that's bigger than a gigabyte. Definitely audio data sets for sure, but audio is just big to begin with. And I just wanted to show like, hey, maybe not that important. It's okay. It can be small. It's fine. People will still find it interesting if it's well documented and interesting. And then I did some linear modeling. So I removed filtered data sets instead of trying to include them as a random intercept, which is how I sort of got around that. And then I modeled the effect of having a subtitle, having a description, the version number. So this is numeric. All of the rest of these are Boolean, so true, false. Whether or not it's bigger than a gigabyte, whether or not the license is open, and then on this, so the dot here, when you're using pipes, just refers to whatever the output of the pipe is. And if we look at the summary, we can see that pretty much everything has an effect that's pretty robust, so pretty far from zero, and has a standard error that is not going to put 0 in that range, except for big data. So you can also see the p-value there is much higher. And when I control for this using what's it called? Crowan's alpha? No. The thing that you do to control for multiple comparisons, that's gonna be not robust. Like that's not a reliable effect. And if we look at the effect, we get something where having a description, I'll zoom out a little bit, is very important and increases the number of downloads more than 100 times. Bonferroni Hap says, yes, Bonferroni correction, thank you. Wow. And Kasim says, I just followed you at Kaggle. Cool. Ooh, thank you. And then we can see it has subtitle is important. It increases number of downloads maybe by 10. Open license also important. And the version number is really marginal. It's right around 0. And big data almost covers 0 in that range. So I think it's not as important. And actually that bigger data leads to fewer downloads, which is sort of interesting. I guess I'm less willing to download something that's 50 gigabytes than something that's, 10 megabytes. This negative version number effect is really interesting though, and I think that is due to the thing where, I guess we may or may not do clustering. I think that's due to the thing where the data sets that Kaggle maintains, so we update those daily, and they're just not super like scintillating. It's not like, oh, fascinating problem. It's like a utility data set, right? It's like, oh, hey, I need the geome files for mapping Utah, and I just need those because that's what I'm working on, but I'm not gonna solve world hunger with those. It's just something that I need because I'm working on it. So we want that to be available to folks, but I'm thinking that the reason that this is negatively associated, just barely negatively associated with number of downloads, is that because it includes those automatically updated data sets. So I want a way to filter those out, and I probably want to do that up here. But unfortunately, jeepers, that's small. I zoomed out to see the things that I was looking at. Plots. Whew, it's been a long week. It's gonna be a long week next week too. Tell y'all what. I don't think there's a way for us to easily tell that a data set is maintained by Kaggle based on this. Version ID, license name, creation date, version number, title, slug, parking garage data. Okay, 20% of data sets are called parking garage data? That can't be right. Oh, this is the versions one. Okay, so this one has the most versions. Gotcha. So each one has, gotcha. Subtitle. Okay, so these subtitles are subtitles that are added to, so these three for sure are added to data sets based on whether or not we're manually updating, so not manually, automatically maintaining them. So I could do it on the subtitle maybe, but I don't have a good list of subtitles a priori. I could look for things with repeating subtitles and assume that those are maintained by Kaggle and then double check my assumption. But also metadata is maintained by Kaggle and it does not have one of these subtitles, so that might not be the best choice either. And I don't think we have a tag for maintained by Kaggle. Let's see what qualities. Okay, so we have this like little boodly loop here, this little button that says, oh, Kaggle maintains this. I think we can filter these. So okay. Maintainer org ID, it looks like, is the field that we're using to sort these on. I don't know where that is in MetaKaggle. It might be in data sources. So we're looking for maintainer org ID. And it may be in a table that we don't have in MetaKaggle, possibly. Okay, so it wasn't either of those. Data source objects, it could be in here. So we're looking for maintainer org ID. Blob field, type, file description. No, not helpful. Which one were we on? We were on data source objects. Dataset votes, that's probably not going to have it. Datasets versions, that's probably not going to have it. Ryan says, do you have creator ID or something like that? Yes, but I don't know that they're all going to have the same creator ID. So I believe that's in datasets or possibly dataset versions. Okay, yeah, so it's in this owner user ID, owner organization ID, negative infinity to 253, there's 620. Data source form, type. So this is whether it's a BigQuery data set or not. Creation date, review date, feature date, last activity date, total views, total downloads. License, file type, size. Oh no, these are filters. Yeah. Okay, so these are actually not tags. Sorry, so these aren't they're not, these are not things that we're getting from the database. These are things, so like size, I'm pretty sure is calculated based on the size in bits or bytes, whatever. Okay, so that tells me that it might be in the versions where this information is stored, because I think that's where the rest of this information is stored, the license, the file type. I'm not 100% sure where file type is stored. Mark says, I'm getting dizzy. Oh, sorry, is that the scrolling? My apologies. I don't mean to make you dizzy. That's what joining data is like, though, unfortunately. And the Kaggle site sort of grew slowly over time, and different things were added, so it had some sort of organic growth, and at some point the team was small enough that everyone could just sort of like know what was in the database off the top of their head, and at this point we're big enough that is not feasible anymore. And that's all I have to say there. I guess it could be organizations. Does this have like anything about maintainer in there? All right. Okay, so here's my question. Okay, no. It's from the organization City of Los Angeles. Organizations 538. Organization is City of Chicago. which Kaggle team is a member of. I think Kaggle team is a member of things that are not organizations that have their data sets maintained by us, though, so that's not going to be a good way of doing this. Organization description. Not helpful. Well, this may be not super doable. Data source objects, data source version ID, blob field, type, BigQuery regular, file description. I think the best way to do this is going to be to get subtitles that are repeated. So data sets combined, and then from there we're going to select, let's group by subtitle. I think it's subtitle or subtitles. And then let's tally, and then let's get top and 10. All right, so this should get us, that's not what it's called. It's called subtitle with a capital S. That'll get you. So this should get us the 10 most commonly used subtitles. Okay, yeah. These are all maintained by Kaggle datasets. Okay, let's get the top 15. Yes, these are still all maintained by Kaggle datasets. Let's get the top 20. Okay, these I don't think are, so Noah is, which is frustrating because https www.sports-reference.com/cbb is not. And there are more data sets with that than there are. And a data set for understanding poverty. That might be one of the Kiva data sets. Nope, this is just somebody doing stuff. Wayward Artisan, adding data sets that have preprocessed data sets, create rich information source. Oh wow, that's a lot of okay, weren't kidding about rich. This is a rich data set. Bunch of different tables, lots of information, lots of household level information it looks like. So that's pretty impressive. But not what we're looking at. And if we look, I want to see how often it's been updated, because I want to see if this is sort of automatically, no, updated 10 months ago, version 1. So, top contributor countries, she's from Germany. Oh, it was for the Kiva competition. Okay. Yeah, good data sets though. 10 out of 10 would use for analysis. Okay, so some of these are yes. So things with explore or from capital in the first letter seem to be maintained by Kaggle datasets. And if I look for administrative boundary shape files, I wonder if that's the World GDA data. Blah, 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 blah. Okay, so these are more by this user, Wayward Artisan, from Nuremberg. Okay. So these are not maintained by Kaggle. Explore with a capital E is, from with a capital F is. These ones are not. And there are 1, 2, 3, 4. So let's say the top 16. And these should all be maintained by Kaggle datasets, yeah. And if we're not getting some of the smaller data sources, that should be fine. It shouldn't matter too much. And we don't want to remove the NA ones, because whether or not something has a subtitle is interesting information that we're looking at. Oops, nope. And then we're gonna filter. Subtitle not is. Whoop. NA. I may have to do. Okay, no, that did work. Sometimes you can't if an object is NA, you cannot do equivalence on it in R. You have to do is.na and use that particular function. All right, so, and then from here, I am going to select the lowercase t subtitle. So this should be just a list of subtitles that we want to remove as maintained data sets. So maintained subtitles, and they all have the same subtitle because it was done automatically. List of nope, it's not a list. Subtitles of datasets maintained by Kaggle. And then I'm just going to, I think I'm going to add a column. Maintained, and then we're going to take datasets combined, combined, and then subtitle in maintain, no, goodness. Actually, it might be easier if I remove this from a data frame. So I'm gonna say as dot vector. All right, let's see if this works. And then if we look at summary data sets combined, we should see a new column at the end here, maintained, logical. They're all false. Okay, well, that's not what I wanted. All right. I'm wondering if it is because of what maintained subtitles looks like. I don't think this is gonna work. I think this is gonna turn it into a single string. Yes, it did. Jaswinder says, do you have to pull as character vector? Yeah, that's what I was thinking here. So casting it as a vector doesn't seem to change because, so it's a data frame column, which are already vectors. So saying that it's a vector doesn't change anything. Saying it's a character changes the whole thing to a single string, which is not what I want. Dplyr. Check if row in column of data frame. No, that's not a very good thing. No, blah 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 blah, all equal. Checking for any with dplyr. Any two data frames to combine if equal, otherwise reasons they're not equal. Okay, that's not what I'm looking for. All right, dplyr. See if cell in list of, it's not a list though, in vector of values. Test of a vector contains a given element. Okay, that might be useful. Let's see. B and V, match in V. So in is what I was using, and that's an R built in. So I could do is.element and then look. Okay. I think I need to do this with mutate, and I think that's gonna help better. Mutate. Equals subtitle in maintain subtitles. And let's just look at the head. instead of saving that. All right. It's thinking. It's good that it's thinking. It should be fairly crunchy. False, 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 false. And are any of these explore, analyze, what attributes? Okay, so I think it might work. Let's see. So, and then if we do summary of data sets combined, do we get, no, okay, that's still all false. Oh, Jaswinder says, I meant just character, so pull instead of as vector. Yeah, that might work. So let's try that. Foop. All right. What do you got for me? Yeah, that worked. Thank you, Jaswinder. I don't think I've used pull before. Let's see. What'd it do? Pull out a single variable. Pull, dflyer. This works like 2 square brackets for local data frames and automatically collects before indexing for remote data tables. Oh, okay. Oh, I see. So it creates it as a character vector instead of a column, which is still a vector, but you can do things like element-wise operations on. Excellent. Thank you. That was very helpful. All right. Get rid of that. Info on weather. Weather? Meh. Dataset is maintained. So these should be outliers in a number of ways, and we're just gonna ignore them by removing them from... Actually, let's remove them up here, honestly. Because I just don't think they're relevant for the specific audience that I'm talking to. Filter, maintained, equals false. Oh, yeah, whoops. Sorry, I'm interested in equivalency. All right, that was pretty fast. And does that change this analysis? No, it is the same, which is good because it means it's robust to the outliers that I was talking about. Yep, those look like more or less the same. Information here. Rerun this linear model, and we get more or less the same results. It looks like, so once we remove the data sets that are maintained by Kaggle, which have hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of versions, but aren't that interesting, but are still useful, good to have. It's a public service that we provide. Actually, during the government shutdown, the last time in the US, because we mirror some government data, people were like, I can't find it. And someone on Twitter was like, oh, hey, you can find some of it on Kaggle, which that was good. Little redundancy in the systems. I will never tell people to put their data eggs all in one basket. That's no good. Okay, yeah. And now we can see that the effect of version number has, not only is it positive, even if we do Bonferroni correction, not only is it significant, it's also positive. So updating your data, if you're not Kaggle and updating your data hundreds of times, does have an effect on your number of downloads. And it looks like for every time you update your data, you get an extra 10-ish downloads. Ryan says, my internet dropped and I lost connection to the kernel I was working on. Did you lose work? Also, first of all, download your kernel before you do anything. But then if you refresh, do you keep your stuff that you did? because that's the bug that I was working on this week. Okay, so that's good because that fits with my intuitions that data sets that are updated routinely, but not like every single day, and maybe people didn't care about them that much to begin with, are really good and useful. And another question that I had that I wanted to know about was whether or not people pose questions in their dataset description. I think the datasets tend to be a little bit more popular if people say, here's the dataset, here are some questions you can answer with it. Here's some like get the juices flowing, get people excited. I know we have a lot of students on our site who are still developing their ability to look at a data set and know what good questions are. So I think that can be helpful to users just sort of in general. So let's find out if does posing a question make the data set more popular? And what I'm gonna do is, so I believe we have in description, I believe we have just the full text of the description. So let me double check that really quick. So it's datasets combined, and then I'm gonna look in the description file, and I'm actually gonna sample 10 of those, so take them randomly. And yeah, okay, so it looks like it's the whole description. You can see some of these are a little bit longer. You can see that there's a lot of formatting some of these, which is really nice. Some of them have links and attributions, which I'm always delighted to see. And some of them are just NA, there's no description. Which is, if you're just like working on a data set in a kernel and you have like a local file you want to upload real quick and you don't want to add a description in a photo and go through like the whole thing, which I think is very reasonable. And why would you do that if it's just like something you need for 5 minutes? Ryan says, issue on my end, doesn't let me download the code, copy and pasted new cells into an offline notebook. Okay, well, I'm glad you didn't lose work. That's very good. And also that you know the reason, because I'm very like, because it's the next editor is a little bit newer, and we have been beta testing it for a really long time, very intensively. I've been doing all my work at work in the new editor. So it says, oops, I'm like, no worries, welcome. So I want to know whether there is I'm going to do this in the dumbest possible way. I'm going to find out whether or not there is a question mark in the description. So I think there's like, let's see, I think the thing that is going to be most, going to be most helpful here is, I thought it was string contains, but I don't think that's actually going to be it. So these str_ functions are for interacting with text data and strings in the dplyr universe. View, trunk, trim, to upper, title, sentence, subset, sub, starts, sub like a replacement, substitute, squish, sort, replace, remove, order pad. Locate might actually be what I want. It might be locate. It might be detect. So let's quickly pull up the docs on that. Vectorized over string or pattern, which is good. In R, we want everything to be vectorized. That makes things much, much faster. Pattern to look for. Yep, that's it. Shed says, I was thinking the same. Find a question mark. Great minds. So string _ detect I think is going to be our best bet. It's going to be fastest for sure, and it will work in our little pipe system that we've been using, which I'm a big fan of. The problem is that it's going to take in a regular expression, and I believe the question mark is a protected character in regular expressions. So regex search for question mark. I just want to really quickly check that. Regular expressions in R. What if I want a punctuation? Scroll, 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 scroll. Sorry, I sort of know what I'm looking for, which is why I'm going so fast. Okay, it is backslash. So it's going to need to be backslash, backslash, question mark. Just wanted to double check that. I knew that it was 2 slashes, but I don't remember which direction it was. I guess I could have just tried one and seen if that was the one. All right, so combined. Nope, datasets combined, I believe, is what the thing we are looking at is called. Yep. And then we are going to mutate, which creates a new column, and we're going to call it question. And we are going to string detect. Oop. Yeah, it turned orange. That's a good sign. And we want that in the description column, I believe. Yeah, so I'm just going to copy and paste here because I'm bad at typing things. And then let's just look at the head. Oops. Let's just look at the head of that real quick to make sure that it looked good. All right, that didn't work. Syntax error in regexp pattern. Does it need to be in square brackets, maybe? Grep, blah, string, C through E. Or, Bubble Ride and Phobos 1991 say hello on Twitch. Hello. Jasminder says string goes first. Oh, is it backwards? Weep. Go all the way over here. Question, false, false, true. Okay, and it looks like there's even a question in the subtitle, so I'm willing to believe that. Okay, that looks good to me. So let's, I think this is probably the last thing we're gonna do today, so I'm just not gonna, I'm not gonna add this to the data set. I'm just gonna do a little bit of this. Going to copy and paste my code and then modify it like an efficient person, except instead of license name it is question, and the fill also I want to be question. I mean, there's only going to be 2, so it shouldn't be too big of an issue. Oh, it actually might be 2 and NA because some of them won't have a result, right? It'll be like I fed in an NA into something that was looking for a string, so yeah, okay, so we have NAs as well. So obviously we already know that not having a description is not going to help people find or use your data set. But if we're looking just between the difference between data sets that don't have a question and do have a question, yep, sure enough, adding a question is a good thing and it makes people more likely to download your data set. No, it's not necessarily causal. It might just be that people who release good data sets also ask questions. But, you know, if you can choose whether or not to add a question to your description and you want people to download your data set, maybe do that. And actually, let me remove the NA. So filter question not equals is it's not an A. No, okay, so filter wants a logical vector, the same length as the data set, so I can take the is NA, run that over question, and that should work pretty well. Yeah, there we go. So you can see that having a question increases the data sets that have questions also are downloaded more frequently. I shouldn't make causal statements because I don't have strong evidence for it, but just like, you know, also, you know, like also maybe probably it is like a little bit causal, maybe, I don't know. I'm not gonna be presenting this as like a peer-reviewed paper, so I don't have to spend, you know, hours making sure to preempt all of the questions that people are gonna ask and all of the nits they're gonna pick. Because I'm just telling people the qualities that a good data set has and my suggestions for getting your data set noticed. So I should do one of them linear model ones first. Yeah. Because I think that that is helpful and interesting and shows you the direction and magnitude of the effect. So I said I wasn't going to assign it to a new, I wasn't going to reassign it to the, I said I wasn't going to reassign it, but I changed my mind. Sorry. All right. There we go. So that should work fine. And then we should be able to, whoop, we don't actually need to filter anything here. We should be good to go. And let's call this questions model modules. Let's call it questions model. And I'm not interested in license name, I'm interested in question. So as we change, as we compare things that do and do not have a question, what's the effect on total downloads? The data is going to be the data that's output of here, and then I want to plot the thing that I just did and not some random other thing from elsewhere in my notebook. Yeah, and sure enough, adding a question, data sets that have questions are generally downloaded around, what do we say, 450 times more, nope, more times, not times more, than data sets without questions. So my advice to you, if you're putting together a data set based on this this analysis, is actually get rid of this entirely. I'm not gonna. I also don't think I'm using dates anywhere. I might be. I'm gonna leave it in just in case I did do something with dates that I forgot about. So my advice to you, based on my analysis of Kaggle's, 14,000 plus data sets, I think we might be, actually, let's see, how many data sets do we got? I think it might be significantly more than that now. 15,000 plus data sets. Excuse me, I forgot a whole thousand. Public data sets. And this is only the public data sets. I'm not doing anything on private data sets here. I should say that. My recommendation is pick an open license, preferably the CC BY and CSA sort of family. I tend to like CC BY SA a little bit more just so that people can use it for work stuff if they want, but that's my preference, and I'm not going to say that that's the best one. He's on a timer, says, oh snap, R. Yeah, I'm not going to make plots and do this sort of tabular analysis in Python. It just it doesn't spark joy, let me put it that way. And all it's just like the really nice R functionality. It's pleasant to use. So open license for sure. Make sure you got your subtitle. Make sure you got your description. Update it. That should help. Make sure you got an open license. It doesn't matter if it's big. You can share small data. It's fine. People are still going to be interested. And in fact, bigger data might actually be worse, possibly, because people are less likely to download it and play around with it. I'm less convinced of this than I am of the rest of them. And pose a question in your description. Ask people, like, say, here's one thing that you can do. Yeah, maybe they'll do it. It definitely makes them more likely to download the data set. All right, so this should already be public. So I'm gonna commit it. Feel free to play around with it if you're interested. You have any questions? I've done a lot of the joining and pre-processing already, so you can just sort of hop into it. And that is the part that I'm going to be honest took me the longest, because I had to remember what all these fields are, and which ones the ID referred to, and sort of like what the foreign keys were. And it took a second. Mark Connery says, thanks, Rachel, from Sports Guy. You're very welcome. And we should have beautiful charts in here now. As promised, you know, I did say in the tweet where I announced this that we were going to do charts, and charts were done. Yeah. So thanks for joining me. I'm going to be back on Wednesday for the reading group. I'm going to be traveling, but I am going to make it happen. And it should be at the same time as well, 9 a.m. Wednesday. It's not going to be, 9 a.m. Wednesday Pacific Daylight Time. It is not going to be 9 a.m. Wednesday Pacific Daylight Time next Wednesday. I will announce that time and put it on the YouTube channel, just so you guys know. And I'll try and tweet ahead of time. And then I will also be back next Friday for more live coding. And I still don't know what I'm going to do. I don't know, if you would be interested, I might do the intro to machine learning in R, maybe talk a little about XGBoost. I have, but I don't think I ever made public a project with LSTMs in R for text generation that I was just sort of noodling on like a year ago. So I might bust that out and dust that off and see what changes there have been to the TensorFlow R interface in the meantime. So that might be something we do. I don't know. I might do something with Python. Who knows? I'm going to PyCon in a few short weeks, so I should also do those things. Yeah. I'm gonna wrap it up here. Thanks for joining me, guys. I hope you found this interesting, useful. If you are if you're sharing data, maybe some good tips for you. And I will see you guys on Wednesday. Have a good weekend, or the rest of your weekend, whichever you're at, and talk to you soon. Bye.